How to own a nice car for less. So first of all, if you're trying to save money for any purpose, cars is one of the easiest places to save a lot of money. So one of the easiest places. So now, before I get into that, I want to address the kind of the elephant in the room about how a car makes you look. Okay, so in fact, there's even a stereotype about that. You know, that you see in movies of the hot girl being attracted to the guy with a hot car. So like, should you be attracted to a guy with a cool car? So now I've seen the entire finances of thousands of people, and here is what I can tell you: there is zero correlation between net worth and car ownership. Nothing. If you see someone with a nice car, probably not rich. And so here's what it is. So it really, when you have an expensive car, what it's a sign of is someone that's a spender. That's what it's a sign of. Not necessarily in a small number of people, it's a sign that they have lots of money. Most of the time, it's a sign that that's a spender. So now there's a book out called Millionaire Next Door, and it actually tells you, like, when you actually see wealthy people, most wealthy people live in regular neighborhoods. They have ordinary cars. They don't try to flash their money. The Millionaire Next Door is a real concept. I can tell you from clients of ours that are quite wealthy, most of them just have a regular cars. You wouldn't know it from looking at their cars, or even or necessarily even their houses. So they're regular people. So it's just as many stories of like somebody that's low income trying to buy a nice car and leasing an expensive car thinking they look cool, and meanwhile I have a client that's a multi-millionaire doctor making $600,000 a year, and he's driving, believe it or not, a 20-year-old Honda Civic, and he just likes it. So but it's driving older decent cars like that is actually very common for wealthy people. It's an easy way just to save a lot of money, and wealthy people it's usually not about spending, it's about how their money is building wealth for them. So, now it's interesting. My dad always told me that a car is a liability, not an asset. Now, as an accountant, I was like, well, that's technically wrong, because it shows up in the asset side of your net worth statement. However, the general point is actually true. Like, cars don't grow in value; they're always declining in value. It's just a question of how much it costs. So, and it's an easy way to save a lot of money. So let's talk about how to do that. The first part is, how do you measure it? How do you decide how much you can afford and all that? So the metric that I use is the ownership cost per year. Now, that's usually to me is the cost to buy plus the interest. Doesn't include all of gas, insurance, repairs, and all that, but it's the ownership cost per year. So when I was young, I would use like $1,500 a year as my goal, and now I'm using about 3,000, and maybe as I get wealthier, I'll get to 4 or 5 or 6,000. But that's how much I'm willing to spend per year. So now my general principle is this: I want to buy a car for half of what it costs new, and then I'm going to own it for quite a few, like 8 or 10 years. That's how you save a whole lot of money. So to buy it for half of what it is new, you usually have to buy it 3 to 4 years old. I did actually buy one that's a year and a half old once for half of new. Sometimes you may have to go to 5 years or whatever it is. But if you can get something that's 3 to 4 years old, usually right after the warranty expires, and you get it for half of what it costs new, with relatively low mileage, that's a great car to have to save a lot of money. Now it's interesting. Some people ask me, like, so if I have a car, I've had it for a long time, so when is it actually cheaper to buy a new car? And the answer to that basically is never. It's if you have an older car, pretty well always, if you're using what is the cheapest as the metric, it's best just to keep it forever, just keep fixing it up. And interesting thing is, if you have an older car, you got to replace the engine completely, and spend maybe $2,000, $3,000 fixing it all up, even doing a paint job and all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, you get a new car for $30,000, you drive it off the lot, the general rule of thumb is you're losing 20 to 30% of the value just as soon as you drive it off the lot. So you've lost, you know, a $30,000 car, you bought 6,000 to 9,000. That's way more than it costs to keep an old car going. So 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 then you want to try to keep it, you know, rust free and keep it well maintained. But you know, there is a point where you can afford a newer car and you want to have one, and that's fine. You get one, but you know, don't ever kid yourself that it's the cheapest thing to do. Now, buying at 3 to 4 years old is kind of interesting because I find a lot of people that really want the warranty on a car. And you know, here's what I can tell you as a financial principle. In general, anything that's guaranteed is expensive. It's almost always the case. I try to avoid things that are guaranteed and warranties because it's almost always something that's expensive. So I've heard people tell me, oh yeah, the warranty saved me, but you know, because they had some problem with their car. But you know, once you have a car that's 3 to 4 years old, it's off the warranty. That's because people overpay for the warranty. That's when it's usually quite a bit cheaper. That's how you can get the really good price on it. So I tend to buy it on purpose, you know, not too long, just after the warranty expires. So, and you know, you're probably, once the warranty expires, once it's that old, you're probably not going to get a manufacturer's defect. Remember, a warranty doesn't cover all costs. It just covers the manufacturing defects. And there probably aren't going to be much in the way of manufacturing defects after 3 or 4 years. So, and that's how you get it for a lot less. You know, I tell you, one of the big secrets to success is to find a good mechanic. You know, it's actually a really important thing. Find a good, honest mechanic that you trust. So I'll tell you an interesting story. When I first moved to from Manitoba, Ontario, I went to one of these big garages, and I had to get my car certified for Ontario, right? So I took it to just a big garage. It was across the street from my place, from my work, and they looked at it and said it was going to be $350 to get it because there was a problem with the hoses and all that. And I thought, what didn't seem kind of right. I remember this is quite a while, you know, a few decades ago, right? So went back, talked to our traffic guy at the trucking guy at work, and he says, "Oh, go to this mechanic." He referred me to a good mechanic. So I went to the mechanic. Got the car certified. It was $30, and I said, "Oh, was there some problem with the hoses or anything?" And he says, "No, the hoses are all fine." So you know, this big garage was going to charge me $350, and said there was a problem with the hoses, but there wasn't. They were actually going to do nothing. They thought they could just charge me $350. So that's the problem what you could have, like with mechanics. There are some, you know, a reasonable number of dishonest ones, and you want not someone who's going to give you a really super cheap price, but someone who's going to give you an honest, fair price and look for ways to cut costs. So now I'll tell you my warranty story. You may find this one interesting, because a lot of people find warranties interesting. But I got one car once that I managed to buy it for half of what it was new for, and it was only a year and a half old, so it still had a year warranty left on it. So I thought it's kind of cool. And then I had a problem that the battery was going dead on it. So so I brought it into the dealer to see how to fix it. And what happened was they said, yep, there's a problem with it, but you know what, there's a sensor on the door that's causing this problem, but we're not sure which door it is. And because it's a warranty, the material costs are covered, but not the warranty, but not the labor cost. And it takes quite a bit of work to disassemble a door. So we think we know which door it is. We're going to try it. So it's going to cost you $500 for us to try that door. If we're wrong, we'll go to the second door. There's 4 doors on this car. I thought, this could cost me $2,000 if they're guessing the wrong door. So I thought, that doesn't sound right to me. So I went to my own mechanic. Have a mechanic I've been to for years, and to get it fixed up. And so he looked at it. He spent about 10 minutes on it. He came back and he says, "Okay, it's fixed, no charge." I said, "What do you mean no charge? Like, what did you do?" He goes, "Well," he says, "the reason your battery's going dead is because the trunk light is going on, as a door sensor is. So all I did is unscrew the trunk light. Now the battery won't go dead. Problem solved, and it's no charge." So here it is. Somewhere between $500 and $2,000 is what it would cost on warranty, and nothing off warranty. So that's just my experience with warranties. Like, when you deal with the warranties, you have to go to a dealer, and everything from the dealer is always way more expensive than if you just find a private, honest quality mechanic. So now let's talk about this half the value. And I want to make sure you understand how this works. So when I was younger, I'd try to buy a car for, like, let's say a $25,000 car. You buy it for about 12 or 13,000, so 3 or 4 years old, and you own it for 8 years, let's say. And so it's costing you like $1,500 a year overall to own it. And so that's a nice cheap way to do it. It's good. It's best if you can buy it in cash or something. But that's what it's costing you to buy. So when you, as your wealth grows, you can afford to spend a little bit more. You decide how much you want to spend. So the last car that I bought was a $45,000 car. I got it 3 years old for $23,000. Right, I'm going to keep it for 8 years, so $3,000 a year is what it's costing me. And so so it's generally a lot less than most people spend on a car. So that's how you can save a lot of money. So now let's look at the question of leasing versus owning. Okay, so leasing versus owning. People ask me, should we lease or whatever it is? And so to me, leasing is, it's just a form of financing versus a loan. That's really what it is. The risk of a lease is that there's often a lot of things, hidden costs that are in there, like how much are you actually paying for the car? What other costs are there? What's the financing cost? So the problem is all those hidden costs. So the other problem with leasing is that it's mainly new cars. And if you want to save a lot of money on cars, the way to do it is also to go with the used cars. So all right, so it's generally, I'd recommend not leasing. It's cheaper to own. In fact, we have a lot of clients. What we do is actually, if they own a home, what we do is we add it into their mortgage, and there we go. That's the cheapest way of financing. It's a one cost thing. It's added to the mortgage, and then they're focusing on everything else. They already own the car for this really good value. Now let's talk a little bit about electric cars, which is it's the whole new thing coming up, and it's actually a really cool way to go, and you can see the trend is going that way. The problem is that for us people who, frugal people trying to save money on cars, electric cars are still kind of a problem. So now the benefit of it is usually the operating cost, right? So it usually costs quite a bit less to charge it versus the gas, and the repairs are less because you don't have all these big, a lot less mechanical moving parts. So, but the disadvantages are, so the secret to saving a lot of money in cars is to have cars for longer. The regular gas cars, typically, if you maintain, they'll last 15 years, often longer. My doctor with a 20-year-old car, they'll often last that long. And the secret is to have them when they're a little bit older. That's where the big money savings are. So and so with electric car, usually once the battery dies, the cost of replacing that is most of the cost of it. So, and you're not getting that long life yet. So now, so remember, the principle is to buy it for 50% of what it is new. And the problem with electric cars so far is, I want to buy a $45,000 Tesla, but there really isn't a used market where I can get it for 23 or 22,000. It's just not really out there yet. So for us frugal people, once that is out there, then that's a good way to save. So now, an interesting cost I mentioned I want to talk about here is the goal of government is to push us into buying electric cars because of climate change, and valuable source, but good idea. But I'm here, a financial guy, trying to help you save money on cars. So doing that is probably going to end up costing you a little bit more money. And I want to tell you one thing that's false about that whole thinking. The thinking is that gas is going to keep going up. We just up to $2 a liter now, and it's probably eventually going to 3 or 4. I think the government actually is intentionally trying to get it that high. So, thinking that it's going to push us to buy electric cars. And you know what? That, from talking to people, from real people with their money, that is false. Okay, so it's the people who cannot afford gas aren't going to buy an electric vehicle. This gas has gone up. It's now costing me $100 to fill up my car instead of 80. So the answer is I'm going to buy a $45,000 car. That's not the answer. So the people that can't afford gas for where it's a problem cannot buy an electric car. So that's not gonna drive them, that's not gonna drive anybody over there. So usually what they're thinking to do, like people who can't afford gas, what they're thinking to do is drive less. Maybe they listen to this video and look, oh, I can save money on a car. So, or they're maybe thinking, maybe I won't even own a car and I'll just, like use Uber now and then, or lease a car when I really need to have one, or try to share a car. Like you try to find some other way to save it. But people who can't afford gas aren't going electric. At least that's not where it's going at this point. So now, last thing I just want to say is, owning a car should be part of your overall financial plan. The question is, how much do you really want to spend on a car? And it's, you should look at your own priorities, and a financial plan will actually tell you that, because you want to be able to live a reasonably comfortable life, and you got priorities. Like, would you rather spend money on a car or on, entertainment, dinners and things like that, or on a nice home, or on more travel? Like, what is priority to you? And remember, we're also trying to save money for the future, because you want to know at some point you can retire and actually maintain the same lifestyle. So how do you do all that, and what's the priority? That's what a financial plan will help you figure out. So you got your cost of ownership. How much are you willing to spend? How much can you spend on a car? And it fits with your own personal life priorities and fits in with your financial plan. And so, but the bottom line is, if you can save a lot of money on a car, it does, open up a lot of money that you can spend on other places or save for retirement. So great idea to do it. And it's, the old FIRE movement about, trying to save money. This is just a really easy way to do it.